Hi, today I want to talk about 5 used cameras that I would purchase again if any of them ever break down. Let's talk about it. Okay, so what are the 5 used camera I highly recommend? Well, the first one of course is the Sony a5000. I think this camera is amazingly built. I think it's very robust. It will fit anybody's need, especially you're starting out as doing YouTube videos. You can get this camera used for around 200 to 250 without the lens. With a kit lens, I highly recommend to get 18 to 55, and that will bring you up to around $250 to $300 used. Why I like this camera is that it does have a flip up screen like this one here, and it is an APS-C sensor camera, which means that it's quite big, so you can bring up your ISO all the way to around 1600. There's a bit of noise around 1600, but still I think it's usable for YouTube for sure. And if you have all the lighting set up, I think this is a very good camera for sure. Now it doesn't have all these neat stuff like the S-Log from Sony. Usually that's in their high-end cameras. However, if you just want a clean image, simple, to the point, then this is it. It can do 1080p, 24 frames per second, and there's also a special modification you can do and make this a unlimited recording. The one thing I like about the a5000 is that it do not overheat as much as other Sony cameras. In fact, if you record continuously around up to 45 minutes, I think this camera is definitely able to handle that. I think overall, the layout of the buttons and all that, I think it's okay. It's definitely usable. It has a built-in flash. Okay, so it's a good camera as well. So for video and photography, I think this camera is pretty good. The only thing is, of course, it doesn't have a viewfinder, which some of you may get turned off by that. Anyway, most of the time when I'm doing photos, I actually look at the screen a lot, and I just have to, during sunny day I would cover the screen, and I can probably see a lot of the shot that I want to take. So definitely recommend it, a5000. Okay, the second camera I highly recommend is the Panasonic GH4. This camera is actually a hot item. I was looking on Kijiji, Amazon, and eBay, and I could not find a price that matched what I bought it for in the past. I was able to get this camera for under $900 including the kit lens. I was looking around on Kijiji and Amazon and eBay, and I could not find that price. That tells me that this camera, even buying used, is very hard to find, under $900. So if you can get one under $900, you got a bargain. Now why is this camera such a great camera? Let's go through the highlights of this camera. Number one, of course, is that it can flip out the screen and you can do a vlogging like this. Okay, you can rotate the screen this way. Secondly, it can do 4K 24 to 30 frames per second. It can also do 10-bit 422 if you have an external monitor like Ultimo Shogun or the Ninja V. It can also do 1080p Full HD 96 frames per second, so that's pretty good. And 422 10-bit. Why 10-bit? Well, 10-bit gives you that flexibility when you color grade. You can stretch it a little bit more and then it won't fall apart. So that's why a lot of filmmakers use minimum 10-bit 422, and Panasonic GH4 can do that. The sensor is micro four thirds, so it's not as great as the a5000. However, if you know the limit of this camera, for example, I would not stretch this camera beyond 800 ISO, then you should be fine. So make sure you have a proper lighting and set up where you have a lot of lights, then you should be fine with this camera. During daytime shot, this camera is amazing. It's just the nighttime shot that you need to be aware of your lighting in your surrounding. Okay, so there are other features, you can look it up, but I think this camera is amazing for under $900 including the kit lens. If you can find it, buy it. It's definitely worthwhile. If this camera would break down, I'll buy another one because I think it's a great camera to have around, especially for documentary. By the way, it can do unlimited recording. a5000 that I just mentioned previously can do that too, but you have to modify it. Okay, it doesn't come standard. You have to do adjustment. There's an app, and I'll provide a link below. then you can do the unlimited recording. The difference is that you can do unlimited recording with this camera that comes with, standard. In addition, it doesn't overheat. So the Sony cameras, there's that tendency to overheat because of the bigger sensor. So just be aware of that, but the Panasonic, you don't have to worry about that so much. Okay, so the third camera I highly recommend is the Fujifilm X-T3. This is the best, I would say, crop sensor camera. Now there is the X-T4, however that's a little bit more expensive. I think that's about $600 more than this camera. If you can find a used Fujifilm X-T3 with the kit lens, now the kit lens is, I don't think it's a kit lens. I think Fujifilm really worked hard in providing the customer with the best lens, even it's a kit lens. For example, this kit lens is 18 to 55 f2.824. Usually Sony and other companies would give you like 3.5 to 5.6, so a bit lower stop than the Fujifilm. Fujifilm go all in with their kit lens. If you can get this camera used under 1,700 Canadian dollars, I think it's a bargain. I'm talking about with the kit lens, right? The kit lens itself you buy separately, it's around $800, $900. So make sure when you buy the camera, make sure you buy the body and the kit lens together around 1,700 Canadian dollars. I think that's a great bargain. I know you may think that's a lot of money, but remember, this is probably the best crop sensor video camera out there. Why do I say that? Well, number one, it can do 4K 60 frames per second, 10-bit 422 if you hook up to an external monitor recorder like a Tomo Shogun or the Ninja V. This setup is pretty much a cinema camera. If you were to get that type of setup, it would cost you tens of thousands of dollars. But with the camera and the Ninja V, you can get that two system around less than $3,000, which is a bargain compared to a $10,000 or $15,000 cinema cameras. Just be aware that. So this camera in itself, amazing. I like the built-in cinema-like color profile, like Eterna, that I use quite a lot. So it's baked into the camera itself, so I don't need to color grade too much. However, you can also record an F-log and then color grade that later using a LUT that you can download. So just overall, this camera, I mean, there's other amazing feature. Like for example, I love the dials and all that. You can check my other videos that I review briefly on this Fujifilm X-T3. But if you want a good quality APS-C crop sensor camera that has the cinema quality video as well as amazing camera feature, like for example 15 frames per second, amazing autofocus, and it can do 1/8000 of shutter speed and mechanical, that's mechanical shutter speed, and you can do 1/32,000 electronic shutter speed. So just go through the specs and you'll see what I'm talking about. Fujifilm X-T3 is just amazing APS-C camera. I think it is the best APS-C camera, even compared to the Sony a6500 or a6600. So there we go. I say Fujifilm, thumbs up. Okay, so the fourth camera I highly recommend is this cinema video camera, the Sony FS700R. Now you probably can get it used with a kit lens for under $2,000. And you're going, what? $2,000? That's a lot of money. Well, remember, this used to be almost $10,000 US without the kit lens and without the firmware, which I highly recommend, and it's mandatory that you get one with the firmware updated. What I mean by that is that there is this 4K feature that you need to upgrade the software. Usually you have to send it to the manufacturer to get it done. So make sure when you buy it used, it's already upgraded, because I don't even think you can do that now. So make sure you get I would say get the FS700R, which is already built into the system. The firmware is 3.01, I believe, minimum. So make sure you do that, because then you can record it through their SDI, 4K 60, 4K 120 burst mode, and 240 frames per second continuous. Amazing. As long as you hook up to the Atomo Shogun Inferno, you're ready to go. This camera has a lot of buttons and features like a cinema camera. It even have an ND filters. So yes, for $2,000 including the kit lens, I think it's a bargain. I actually have two of these. One didn't have any firmware update. This one does. The one without the firmware update was a little bit cheaper, of course. And this one has the firmware update, and I'm very proud to own it. In fact, if it ever breaks down, I'd probably get another one to replace it. For bang for your buck, this camera is it for a cinema camera. It does have S-Log 2, so you can color grade this effectively, especially when you do raw recording through Ultimo Shogun Inferno. So I can't really say much about it other than you can look up the review. One of the unique features that this camera has is that it has amazing audio input, which is XLR, two of them built into this camera. So like I said, this is the cinema camera for a bargain price. If you can find one for under $2,000 including the kit lens, you got a bargain on your hand. Definitely, especially with ND filter, wow. And 4K 60 or 120 burst mode, amazing. Okay, so the last camera I highly recommend, the fifth camera, is the Sony A7R III. If you buy it used, you probably can get around $2,500 or $2,800 including the kit lens. I know it's a lot of money, but remember this is a full frame camera. It's a 42 megapixel. It has a built-in stabilization in the body itself, and it is also amazing video camera. Now the only flaw, of course, it can do only 8-bit 422 output. However, as long as you watch your lighting system and you don't color grade as much, you record it in S-Log 2 or 3, and then you add the LUT to it, I think this is amazing camera. For photography, definitely one of the top, if not the top camera out there, especially when you talk about bang for your buck. So this, for $2,800, it's up there with the Nikon D850. So if you're looking for a professional photography camera and a bit of video camera, then this is the camera to own, definitely. Okay, so those are the 5 used cameras that I highly recommend, but there are 2 more that I would say deserve a honorable mention. The Nikon D7000, I think, is, for the price that you can get for now, used around $250. That camera is amazing. It's a 16 megapixel, but I think the build quality and everything, and if you do a special mod, you can actually have a clean HDMI output as well, so it can act as a studio camera, and the battery lasts very long. So that camera overall, I think for $250, it's a bargain price. You can find one, that is, because you cannot find one for under $250. Usually they're selling for around $300-400. However, if you can get $250, that used Nikon D7000 is amazingly good. The other one I highly recommend is the Sony A5100. Now this one, it's kind of quirky. Okay, the reason for that is that it does overheat after 27 minutes of video recording. For photography, it's amazingly good, an APS-C sensor camera. I have a way around it. What I do is that I attach an external battery adapter to it, and as also I connect the Ultimo Shogun or external monitor recorder to it, and I get an unlimited recording. There's another way too. You can also modify the app inside the Sony A5100, and you can have unlimited recording. But be aware that if you record on its own, they overheat after 27 minutes. So the only way is to hook up an external battery and external monitor through HDMI. Then you have a amazing quality camera that can do 1080p 60 frames per second. The one thing I like about the Sony A5100 is that it has a flip out screen just like the A5000. The reason I can't show you right now because I'm actually filming with Sony A5100, which is hooked up to my Ultimo Shogun, and it's also connected to external battery. This is why I was able to record such a long recording. So as long as you know your camera, then you'll be fine. By the way, the Sony A5100, you can get it for around $250 as well if you can look for it. Because again, all these cameras that I mentioned, very hard to find. So there we go. We have 5 cameras that I highly recommend and 2 I recommend definitely. If any of these camera ever dies on me, definitely gonna buy it again if I can find the bargain for it. Hopefully you enjoy the 5 cameras and 2 cameras that I just mentioned. They're amazing camera. If you buy used, you probably can get a good bargain for it. It ranges from $200 to $3,000. I know those are a wide spectrum of price, but if you know what you want and what you're looking for, make sure of course that when you buy used, you check it out, feel it, click it, look inside, outside, whatever it takes, and then give them the money and you're satisfied with it, then definitely you'll get the camera that you want. It depends on your budget, right? So if you have the budget, you can get the $3,000 camera. Or if you don't have the budget, you can start out with a $200 camera like the Sony A5000. Alright, thanks for watching EducateTube.com.